going through these days all around the world. Okay, to start this event, I would like to greet the Dean of Language Education Faculty of Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta, Dr. Suryanto, and the Dean of Faculty of Major Language Studies of University Science Islam Malaysia, Associate Professor Dr. Nurhamimi Zainuddin, and the Head of Japanese Education Department, the Head of Arabic Education Department, the Head of English Education Department of Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta, the keynote speakers, all presenters, and participants, and all of the volunteering committee that has been working really hard for the past few months to prepare this this very big webinars. Okay, for your information, ILEC has been held by the Faculty of Major Language Studies, University Science Islam Malaysia since 2012. This year, it started its international collaboration with the Faculty of Language Education of Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta, Indonesia. Okay, as a result of the pandemic situation hitting the world right now, the conference is held virtually for 2 days, which is today, October 13, and tomorrow, October 14, 2020, via Microsoft Teams meetings. It is really unfortunate that we cannot meet in person as what we do in the old normal conference. However, the bright side of this webinar is that it has also given wider opportunity for people to join the conference in the convenience of their home. Say, for example, you can still listen to the speakers today, our wonderful speakers and also presenters for the next 2 days while sitting in the living room, probably with your family and children. And I think the best part of all is that you don't even have to wear shoes. Okay, for your information, I should mention here that along with our 3 keynote speakers for today and tomorrow, ILEC also has received 78 abstracts and 62 full papers that will be published with the hope of publishing from authors from Indonesia, Malaysia, and Japan. Since one of the goals of the conference is to improve the accessibility of knowledge to everyone, publications of the articles are also aimed after the conference. For quality control, we also have a board of reviewers and also editors. And after reviewed, eligible articles will be published in a Web of Science Index proceeding and also ISBN proceedings. ILEC has also made a collaboration to 6 journals for possible publication. Those are the journals of Language and Literature Education, and then Izumi, Japanese Language, Literature and Culture Journal, Journal of Art and Literature, Journal of Japanese Language Education and Linguistic, Maharat, and also Journal of Foreign Language Teaching and Learning. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as the start of today's opening ceremony, we will listen to Quran recitation and it will be delivered by Al-Ihsan.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم خلقكم والذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون الذي جعل لكم الأرض فراشا والسماء بناء وأنزل من السماء ماء فأخرج به من الثمرات فأخرج به من الثمرات رزقا لكم فلا تجعلوا لله أندادا وأنتم تعلمون وإن كنتم في ريب مما نزلنا على عبدنا فأتوا بصورة من مثله وادعوا شهداءكم من دون الله إن كنتم صادقين وادعوا شهداءكم من دون الله إن كنتم صادقين صدق الله العظيم.
Enggak, maksudnya
Thank you, Ustaz. Sadaqallahul it's our greatest hope that our 2 days conference will run smoothly. Okay, and next to the agenda is listening to Indonesian National Anthem, Indonesia Raya, and Muhammadiyah Anthem, Sang Surya. We apologize. There's a technical difficulty here that we're still working on. All right, so that was the national anthem of Indonesia Raya and also Muhammadiyah anthem Sang Surya. The second on the agenda is to listen to the welcoming speech from the head of the focal committee, Wistri Mesa MPD.
Dear colleagues, on behalf of the organizing committee, I am honored and pleased to welcome you to the International Language and Education Conference ILEC 2020 to take place at Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta in the special region of Yogyakarta, Indonesia, 13th and 14th October 2020. Initiated and firstly held by the Faculty of Major Language Studies, University Science Islam Malaysia in 2012, now the conference reached its sixth International Language and Education Conference in 2019. During last year's conference, a collaboration between the Faculty of Language Education, Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta, and the Faculty of Major Language Studies, Universitas Science Islam Malaysia, had established. As a mark of the collaboration between institutions had begun, this year in 2012, the 7th International Language and Education Conference will take place in Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta, and focusing on an extensive discussion that goes to the heart of all matters relating to innovations in language and education fields. For the last decade, scientists, researchers, and scholars from various fields struggling to explore science and technology in order to adjust to this ever-changing era and ultimately to achieve sustainable innovation. The 4.0 industrial revolution has made a tremendous impact on every field of science, including education. Additionally, the Sustainable Development Goals, also known as Global Goals, were adopted by all United Nations member states in 2015 as a universal call to action to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure that all people enjoy peace and prosperity by 2030. In these global goals, quality education included among 17 goals. This, I believe, is applied in education in general, as well as language education. This conference will facilitate networking, information exchange, and collaboration within and among the scientists, researchers, and scholars around the world. Something of great importance to achieve sustainable innovation in language and education goals in a globalized world. Therefore, the theme of this conference is cutting-edge innovation on language and education. In contrast, the scopes are linguistic, applied linguistics, education in 4.0 era, technology and innovation in language learning, and teacher professional development. I hope the conference will be of professional and personal benefit to all of us as we proceed with our work towards a future educational situation that is sustainable, especially in the view of linguistic and language education. We look forward to welcoming you in Yogyakarta. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, thank you, Wistri Meisa Sensei, for your information. Ibu Wistri Meisa is a lecturer in Japanese Education Department of Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta. And the next is the speech from the Dean of Faculty of Language Education of Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta, Dr. Suryanto.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to ICOSI ILEC 2020. Praise be to Allah SWT who has given us His blessing and mercy so we can gather today virtually to undertake an international conference named ILEC 2020. ILEC 2020 stands for International Language and Education Conference. Salawat and salam may be upon to our beloved Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Because of his guidance, we can read to the glory today and in the day after. Dear audience, ILEC 2020 is a conference as a result of collaboration between Fakultas Pendidikan Bahasa Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta and Fakulti Pengajian Bahasa Utama Universitas in Islam Malaysia. The theme of our conference today is cutting-edge innovation on language and education. In this occasion, allow me to express my highest gratitude to Dr. Nurhamimi Zainuddin, the Dean of Fakulti Pengajian Bahasa Utama University Sains Islam Malaysia, who has been very supportive and helpful to be co-host for this conference. We do hope that this mutual collaboration can still proceed in the coming future. Our thanks also go to our university partners like Asia University in Taiwan, Fakulti Pengajian Bahasa UITM Saalam Selangor, Malaysia, and Mindanao State University Iligan Institute of Technology, Philippines. You all have been very good collaborators so far. Thank you very much for your kindness and collaboration. My high appreciation goes also to the committee, both the committee in university level ICOSI or in the focal level ILEC. Thank you very much for your hard work and perseverance in preparing this conference. May Allah SWT give you much better return. My best thankfulness also goes to the participants of this conference from several countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, and Philippines. You are all very meaningful to us. Your participation will benefit us, benefit knowledge, and benefit intellectual discourse that can make betterment for knowledge and humanities. Again, thank you very much for your participation. We will conduct ICOSI annually. Next year, Fakultas Pendidikan Bahasa will run a second ICOLTIC International Conference on English Language Teaching and Linguistics. Besides, we will still collaborate with Fakulti Pengajian Bahasa Utama University Sains Islam Malaysia to run ILEC. We are waiting for your participation next year. We would like to ask for your forgiveness if in the process of preparing this conference we have flaws, mistakes, shortage, and other weaknesses that may hamper communication and other related conference activities. Please forgive us in these matters. Finally, have a nice conference. Thank you very much for your kind attention and participation. We are waiting for your participation next year. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, that was a speech from Dr. Suryanto. So thank you, Dr. Suryanto. And we will have our last speech, and it will be delivered by the Dean of Faculty of Major Language Studies of University Science Islam Malaysia, Associate Professor Dr. Nurhanimi Zainuddin.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin. Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi syrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli, amma ba'd. Yang saya hormati Rektor Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta Dr. Ai'ad Gunawan Budianto MP, Dekan Fakultas Pendidikan Bahasa UMY, sahabat saya Dr. Suryanto, Wakil Dekan FPB UMY Dedi Suryadi PhD dan Nanang Jokop MPD, Keynote Speakers, AJK, Panitia ILEC 2020 dan peserta ILEC 2020. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera. Alhamdulillah, bersyukur kita kepada Allah SWT kerana dengan nikmat dan kurnianya dapat kita berjumpa secara virtual di dalam ILEC 2020. Selawat dan salam ke atas junjungan besar Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wasallim. Atas nama Dekan Fakulti Pengajian Bahasa Utama USIM, saya ingin mengucapkan banyak terima kasih kepada FPB UMY atas terlaksananya atau berlangsungnya ILEC 2020 dengan jayanya walaupun di sebalik pandemik COVID-19. ILEC pada mulanya adalah satu international conference yang diadakan sekali dalam 2 tahun sama ada di USIM, dan kita telah mengadakan banyak siri-siri ILEC di hotel-hotel sama ada di sekitar Lembah Kelang ataupun luar daripada Kuala Lumpur. Pada tahun 2018 telah termeterainya satu MOA antara FPB USIM dan juga FPB UMY, dan tahun ini kami telah memilih FPB UMY sebagai tuan rumah kepada ILEC 2020. Kami mendoakan agar kerjasama yang dijalinkan antara FPB USIM dan juga FPB UMY berjalan lancar. Ada banyak lagi sebenarnya aktiviti yang ingin kita jalinkan. Kita ingin buat staff mobility, student exchange, dan juga kita akan buat pelbagai joint research. So, we would like to congratulate FPB UMY, and we hope that ILEC 2020 will be a success one. Syukran jazilan, jazakumullahu khairal jaza, wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And ladies and gentlemen, that was the last speech, which indicates that we have completed the opening ceremony of the 7th International Language and Education Conference. Therefore, the 7th International Language and Education Conference with the topic of cutting-edge innovation on language and education is officially open. I think we can give a round of applause even though we cannot hear with each other. Okay, thank you for the applause. Okay, because we have completed the opening ceremony, I guess now we come to the main agenda of the conference, which is the plenary discussion among all the presentations during these 2 days. And for the first presentation, our first plenary discussion, we will have Ibu Wistri Meza as the moderator. Okay, once again, for your information, Wistri Mesa Sensei, the way we call the teachers or the lecturers in Japanese education, she is the lecturer in Japanese Education Department in Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta, who is also the head of the committee of ILEC this year. Okay. In this occasion, she will facilitate the presentation and discussion with our first keynote speaker. To Wistri Mesa Sensei, I give the stage to you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to International Language and Education Conference 2020. My name is Wistri Mesa of Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta, and I am your moderator for the first plenary session. I would like to welcome you all to the International Language and Education Conference. It is a pleasure to have all of you in this session. Before we begin, I would like to request you to mute your microphone during the recorded presentation of the keynote speaker. And I would like to first introduce our first keynote speaker, Professor Hiroko Azuma. Professor Azuma is currently a professor at the Graduate School of International IG Prefectural University of Foreign Studies. She has published extensively on various international journals within the area of Japanese linguistics, social linguistics, and Japanese language education. She participates in various organizations such as Japan Association for Language Policy, the Society for Teaching Japanese as a Foreign Language, the Society for Japanese Linguistics, and the Linguistic Society of Japan. Additionally, she is also an editorial board member in Japan Association for Language Policy. In today's session, Professor Azuma is going to present her research entitled The Significance of Learning or Teaching a Foreign Language. Questions and feedback are greatly welcome. Without further ado, Now let's welcome Professor Azuma's presentation. Enjoy.
Good morning, everyone. Selamat pagi. Nama saya Azuma Hiroko. I'm extremely honored to have been invited to ILEC 2020 as a keynote speaker. Today, it is my great pleasure to give a talk on the significance of learning, teaching a foreign language, considerations from practical example of collaborative learning between Japanese language learners and Japanese students. I teach linguistics at the university, and I am in charge of Japanese language education course. My PhD dissertation was a study of the syntax and meaning of Japanese grammar. I also carry out educational activities in collaboration with Japanese students and Japanese language learners. See that slide. Recently, I have been doing research to different cultures and on educational practice in different regions, as well as research related to human resource development. In particular, today's talk focuses on the introduction of examples of educational practices written in the final paper on the list, an exchange project between EPA care worker candidates and university students, a practice in human resource development in multicultural Japanese society. Based on a bilateral agreement, young people from Indonesia who engage in long-term care and welfare work in Japan can learn Japanese and become familiar with Japanese customs during the training period before getting a job. In a project in my class, Indonesian young people and Japanese university students interact with the purpose of getting to know each other's values and customs. In this talk, I will introduce and attempt to explore the significance of learning a foreign language and the significance of teaching a foreign language through an exchange project in the undergraduate program of the university where I work. In Japan, as the population and birth rate decline and the population ages, we need foreign workers as an important human resource. In the past, the only people who learned Japanese may have been researchers, experts, and people who loved Japan. But now, more and more people are learning Japanese in order to work in Japan. There are many foreign residents living in Japan now, but many do not have strong Japanese language skills. In addition, in Japan, there is a shortage of teachers who can teach Japanese. The government of Japan has compiled a report of the Cultural Deliberate Committee 2019, an advisory committee of the Agency for Cultural Affairs, the ideal way of training of Japanese language education personnel. In this report, after organizing Japanese language education personnel by field, role, and stage, the quantities and abilities required for each field and role are shown, and the educational content and model curriculum are presented accordingly. I would like to draw your attention to is Japanese language education for workers. The following is a quote from the Council for Cultural Affairs National Language Subcommittee 2019 mentioned previously. Since it is necessary to collaborate with various employment sites and implement a Japanese language education program that meets every need, a cross-disciplinary perspective is required when conducting Japanese language education in various industries and occupations. To be able to lead life as a member of society in Japanese society, the Japanese language teachers involved with workers need to be aware that learning Japanese is also important. It is necessary to have the communication skills to explain the necessity of Japanese language education, the effect of Japanese language learning, the background of learners, and the degree of intercultural acceptance and adaptation to those who are not involved in Japanese language education, such as employers and family members, in an easy-to-understand manner. Really issues for human resources for Japanese language education for workers? They are not. Members of Japanese society need to be trained to be automatically prepared in this way at all times. Until now, foreigners have primarily been guests in Japanese society. But now, this is changing. For what purpose do foreign residents who live and work in Japan study Japanese, which is for them a foreign language? Is it to get the job done? Is it to make sure that they do not make mistakes in their daily lives while living in Japan? And for what purpose does the Japanese teacher teach Japanese? Is it to help people improve their work skills? Is it to help people to avoid having trouble in Japanese daily life? The students I teach answer, for example, regarding the purpose of learning a foreign language such as English. I want to know more about countries and regions that I do not know. I want to know more about my favorite foreign music and art. I want to work in a foreign language. In the past, international students in Japan who learn Japanese at university may also have answered in that way. And the students of the Japanese language teacher course say the following. I want to convey correct Japanese language and introduce Japanese culture. I want to help people in Japan who are in trouble because they don't understand Japanese. These are great goals. In addition, there are answers that come from both groups. I want to make friends with foreigners. I want to get along with foreign residents. Why does studying and teaching a foreign language enable us to make friends with foreigners? And what do the learners and teachers' feelings of wanting to get along have to do with the purpose of improving work skills and supporting daily life? Now, many foreigners who come to Japan to work, as opposed to coming to study Japanese at the university or vocational school, are also learning Japanese while receiving work training. It turns out that when such people take the opportunity to learn a foreign language and are helped by Japanese students, in fact, great things happen to both foreign language learners and the students who are trying to help. I will now introduce one initiative. The Department of International and Cultural Studies in the Faculty of Foreign Studies at Aichi Prefectural University is focusing on active learning projects. The activities carried out by our department were described in University Active Learning from Introduction to Curriculum Management, edited by Kawaizuku in 2016. Kawaizuku is the largest preparatory school in Japan for university entrance exams. An example of a particularly active initiative is a second-year course at the university, project type exercise. In that class, some exchange activities under the theme of knowing other cultures, knowing my own culture, exchange with Indonesian care worker candidates are carried out. The class is not intended solely for foreign language education measures, but students who wish to teach Japanese to foreigners in the future can take the class. Participants are as follows. About 10 second-year university students from the Department of International and Cultural Students, about 30 Indonesian care worker candidates, Indonesian long-term care welfare candidates received training for 6 months after coming to Japan, and then work as a long-term care worker at the facility. If a candidate passes the national qualification after about 3 years, they can live and work in Japan on a long-term basis. In a 4-month project, we will have 3 exchanges. All conversations will be in Japanese. This is to give foreigners who will work in Japan the opportunity to use and become familiar with Japanese. Here are some examples of activities. 1. Tour of training facilities and conversation exchange. 2. University information and topic discussion or cooking training. 3. Presentation. For the first session, trainees give a tour of the training facilities to university students. Then, we have a roundtable discussion to become acquainted. For the second session, the trainees come to the university and the students guide the trainees. After that, participants discuss the topics of their choice or practice cooking Japanese home-cooked food. For the third session, the trainees give a presentation in Japanese summarizing what they have studied for 6 months and university students gave a presentation about Japanese social customs. These are photos of the activities. Roundtable discussion. They provided information on nearby attractions, discussed the school system or fashion trends, or thinking about marriage, etc. The students guide the trainees on the university, library, gymnasium, shops, and multilingual centers, and so on. Tuition. The trainees announced the concept of Japanese long-term care in comparison with Indonesia. Students made presentations on Japanese travel and Japanese-style hotels. There were also summer festivals, Natsumatsuri, and introductions of delicious food in winter, onabe, amazake, osechi, and so on. In cooking practice, they made Japanese-style soup, misoshiru, hand-rolled sushi, and rice bowl ohagi using red beans. And they made tebasaki. It's a famous food in Nagoya, Aichi, too. An unstated but primary goal I have for the lesson is as follows. Be interested in other people and try to know other people in relation to yourself. Learn how to select and present information so that it can be communicated to people with different backgrounds. I would like participants to learn this kind of thing through interactions with people they do not know very well. Participating students notice the following. They may have unfounded respect or contempt for foreigners who are dispatched to carry out heavy labor, as these workers are in short supply in Japan. However, these trainees will appear in reality as individuals who have names, faces, hobbies, and special skills. And as their perspective changes, they will have positive association with young people of the same generation. At first, I wanted to teach foreigners about the Japanese language and Japan. However, because Indonesians who are training to work in Japan have been studying the social situation in Japan and have acquired specialized knowledge of nursing care, I realized that I'm not in a higher position. Initially, I wanted people to know more about Japan, but along the way I realized that I didn't know or wasn't trying to know Indonesia. Now, I want to know about Indonesia and about the people I have had the opportunity to meet any times. For that purpose, I will be able to support the learning of Japanese and will be able to adjust my own Japanese and understand how to improve communication in Japanese. From the trainees' point of view, the effects are as follows. Trainees learn Japanese and specialized subjects from the teachers and staff at the training facility every day. In the practical training and facility, trainees care for the elderly. Trainees come alive when they talk to students of the same generation about familiar topics such as youth fashion, marriage, lunchboxes, and popular youth language. Many of the trainees have already graduated from university, so they are very curious about what kind of student life Japanese university students are living. As slightly older members of society, they sometimes give advice to them. It is important to make friends with colleagues and senior employees and the place where the training takes place, but having young Japanese friends outside of work makes life brighter. Both university students and trainees increase their desire to know themselves and other individuals through 3 consecutive exchanges. As members of the same society and friends, they continue to interact on SNS and other media even after the project is over. This project has the superficial function of giving foreign workers the opportunity to use Japanese in their daily lives and giving students practice in supporting the learning of Japanese, thereby improving the foreign workers' language proficiency. More important than that, they gain mutual respect and a sense of intimacy. Young people from different positions have come to want to know more about their individual differences through the activities of various participants. In order to satisfy the feeling of wanting to know, people want to be better able to use words. That is, if we want to know the other person, in order to communicate, it does not matter whether it is a foreign language or your mother, as long as there is a language common to the other person. When Japanese is being studied, it is natural to focus on learning Japanese. However, the person is a person before he or she is a learner. To communicate, it is not wrong to use Indonesian or English, and it is also important to devise Japanese expressions in an easy-to-understand manner. Relationship building does not begin after learning or teaching a foreign language. While building relationships, you will also improve your verbal communication. Of course, verbal communication is not just a problem in foreign languages. The Immigration Bureau of Japan and the Agency for Cultural Affairs created guidelines for easy Japanese and published them in August 2020. As the number of foreign residents living in Japan has increased, it has become very important to get to know each other. To that end, the Japanese government has begun to advertise that it is important for people who are originally from Japan to moderate their mother tongue and express it in an easy to understand manner for people who are not good at Japanese. When studying a foreign language, while working abroad, the work and daily life are very important as immediate tasks. It is also important for the teacher or supporter to help with us with this. But before that, everyone is a member of the community and lives in a spiritual connection with others. With many people living in the same area at the same time, we need to be interested in other people and have a common language. In this practical education activity, both Japanese university students and Indonesian trainees who are supported are able to notice this. Students may or may not become Japanese language teachers in the future. They may also live in Japan and become a supporter, or they may live in a foreign country and be supported. Even if there are differences in language and position, we can teach and learn from each other as equal human beings. That is the most important thing. The significance of learning teaching a foreign language is to take advantage of that opportunity to get to know the other person, to express yourself. From this, I believe that a relationship of trust will be created in a diverse society. Unfortunately, carrying out this particular project will not be possible this year due to the spread of COVID-19. However, thanks to my inevitable experience of online university classes, I also acquired new skills. Using these skills, I'm trying to remotely connect Japan and foreign countries and start a new project this week. Even people who don't live in the same area live on the same planet. With this global perspective, we can talk about common topics and interest in various languages. I would like to talk about this new project another time. Fortunately, I can give this talk despite being in Japan. And it makes me happy to know we are thinking about the same themes, whether in Indonesia, in Japan, or other countries. Thank you for your kind attention. Terima kasih. ありがとうございました。
Thank you for our keynote speaker, Professor Azuma. Your presentation were great and giving excellent knowledge for all. 東先生、興味深いお話をいただき、誠にありがとうございます。And if I may reveal a little bit of what the topic that Azuma Sensei already explained about from the significance of learning and teaching a foreign language, especially a consideration from practical examples of collaborative learning between Japanese language learners and Japanese students. In a practical case where the EPA Japanese training program trainees, after 3 years, they can obtain a long-term stay for working in Japan. And in this case, there were like 3 sessions that they have to go through the program. And we can see the achievement points of the point of view from the Japanese students and the trainees in this project. Well, In conclusion, the importance of learning and teaching foreign language, especially Japanese in this topic is about, if it's in a Japanese, there's a phrase, hito to hito no tsunagaru. So it's about to establish the true relationship with people instead of focusing the grammar mistakes. We are treating the opponent as an equal human being. With that being said, now let's move to the next agenda, which is discussion. Please write down your question in the chat box with format to Professor Azuma, or you can raise a question directly to Professor Azuma, and I will try my best to translate it from English or from Indonesian or from Malaysian if I could. Is there any question? Okay. Okay, I think we have a question here. Sonda Sanjaya, Sensei, Sonda Sensei. Yes. Hello?
Audio check.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for the
Okay,
chance.
Harry. Okay, Harry, you're welcome. Azuma Sensei. Azuma Sensei already joining us here. And,
Yeah. Okay.
Azuma Sensei, どうぞよろしくお願いします。
お願いします。
はい、そう、ちょっと質疑応答で、
Okay.
最初の質問は孫田先生からお願いします。孫田先生お願いします。
Okay. May I ask Professor Azuma with in Japanese?
お願いします。
すみません。大変興味深い研究の結果を、聞かせていただいて誠にありがとうございました。そうですね。私も何ですか、特に異文化コミュニケーション、日本人の学習者とあるいは日本語母語話者の学生とインドネシア語母語話者がどのように会話をして、それから友情関係を構築することをずっと考えているんですけども、もし先生が学生の皆さんとやっていることを見て、そういうような活動で日本語学習者とインドネシア日本語母語話者の学習者と友情関係を構築することができたらいいなと思うんですが、はい。それから、先ほど先生が見せてくださった発表なんですけども、インドネシア語話者の人は全員看護師さんですね。
はい。すみません。ウィストリさん、
はい
このまま日本語で答えていいですか？それとも質問をオーディエンスに。
質問をちょっと訳して、
そうですね。
はい、
少しじゃあ待ちます。
参加者さんに、
はい、
分かるように。
はい。じゃあ答えるの少し待ちます。お願いします。
Okay. Maaf ya, Bapak. Okay, I'm sorry. So the question from Sonda Sensei is, if I can put it in a summary, that how the students do the conversation, and the students in here refer to the Japanese students and Indonesian trainees. Is that correct, Sonda Sensei?
Yes, that's true.
And the second question is?
そうですね。
どのようにやるかってことですか？
そうですね、
方法を。
はい、そうですね。
あ、方法だけですか？
はい。
はい、すみません。
じゃあ、
Okay, so
じゃあ答えましょう
I
か。
think I think Professor Azuma ready to answer the question. Azuma 先生よろしくお願いします。
確かに最初初めて会った時はどちらもとても特に日本の学生は緊張しています。で少し年齢が、インドネシア人の人たちの方が高いこともあって、彼らの方が最初からとてもフレンドリーに、学生に接してくれます。でいいですかね。それで具体的に、私の方からその活動の枠組みを示して、学生たちにできるだけアイディアを仲良くなるためのアイディアを、考えさせて、そして楽しく活動できるようにします。ただその時に自分たちが全部リードしようとかやろうという気持ちが最初あるのを、なるべく私は眺めていて、活動するごとにお互いに対等であることがだんだん分かる、その尊敬すべき相手であることが分かるような仕掛けを入れるようにしてます。どうしても日本で活動するので、なんとなく日本人の方が偉いのではないかと頭で思い込んでいるので、そうではないことを活動の中で気づくような工夫をいろいろやっています。
Okay. So how the conversation was made is actually based on the trainee and the students themselves to decide what topic they would like to talk. So there was no a lot of involved um, from the researcher, and it's specifically to how to build or develop the relationship between the students, the Japanese students, and Indonesian trainees. Well, at first they felt nervous. 緊張しましたね。But then eventually they kind of grasped the conversation flow and naturally understand about which like who is the person they talk to, and then develop the like probably なんか尊敬する人っていうことが、その立場が分かるようになって、そこで、会話をしましたね。はい。And yes, and do the conversation based on that. I guess that's it. Probably. そんな先生。
それから全部看護師ですかという質問があったと思いますけど、この制度で来る人たちは、インドネシアで主に大学で、メディカルなその医療とか、保険とかの勉強をしている人が多いです。で、日本ではその老人を、介護するその施設があるので、そこでの知識というのは必ずしも看護、ナーシングだけではないですけれども、いろいろと専門的な勉強をする。で、そのためにでも日本語もとてもたくさん勉強しているので、インドネシアにいるうちに6ヶ月かな、先にジャカルタで日本語の勉強をしますけれども、とてもよく勉強してやってきていると思います。素晴らしいと思います。
Okay, so for the second question about the respondent of the project, is the trainees actually were all of them kangoshi or nurse, right? But not all of them are nurses, but some are like medical related students. Okay. Oh. And okay, so there is another question coming in. came in. Soda Sensei, would that be okay?
Okay.
Is that okay? Okay. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
To the next question, we have question from Ms. Puput Arfiandani. And hold on. I'm sorry. Oh, okay.
質問読みました。
はい。
I read it.
大丈夫ですか、先生。
はい、大丈夫です。
はい、わかりました。
Of course, はい。
Okay. So the professor ready to answer?
はい。もちろん、日本語だけではなくて、どんな言語でも、そのようにだと思います。もちろん目的はいろいろですけど、本当に言葉を学ぶことや使う意味というのは、どの言語でも同じだと思います。
Okay. Well, the answer is that any language is the same. So that's the answer. Very short.
Very short answer. Okay. That's great.
So yes, I think, Sensei, I think it can also apply to 英語ですね。英語でもできますね、先生。
もちろん、of course.
適用
You
する
can.
こともできます。はい。Okay. And Ms. Puput say, thank you very much, Professor Azuma. Is there any other question? You can type in the chat box, or you can also raise a question directly to Professor Azuma. We still have a lot of time for the Q&A session. Okay. So while we're waiting for other participants to ask the question, well, I probably wanted to do a little bit review with Professor Azuma. では、東先生、ちょっと私の方から質問がありますけど、でこのプロジェクトは、これはもう何回もしましたね。はい。なんかこれはなんか最近のプロジェクトなんですか？
はい。この、インドネシアの人が日本に来るのはもう確か10年ぐらいありますが、私がこのプロジェクトをやっているのは、5